Hello, my name is Pedro Silva, and I'm an ideals advisor with Higher Up Consulting. And ideal stands for integrity, dedication, equity, appreciation, love, and service. And today we're going to talk about when trust meets empowerment. So let's just cut to the chase. I've come to witness that employees are trusted but not empowered. And we're going to explain a little bit about what that means and what can be done. So, what does it mean to be trusted? Well, when someone or something is trusted, it means that they're regarded as honest, dependable, and capable of fulfilling their commitments or responsibilities. And when we hire people for our organizations, we definitely want to hire people that can be trusted because there's a job to get needs to get done, and we need the people to do those jobs. We need to be able to trust them. That goes without question. And when people cannot be trusted, then usually we determine that it's not the place for them. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of confusion that comes up often between empowerment and being trusted. So, what does it mean to be empowered? Well, to be empowered, it's basically when someone uh, feels that they are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and support necessary to assert their rights, express their opinions, and pursue their goals confidently. So, an empowered person feels like they have everything that they need to succeed. And I want to break down that word confident just a bit. It comes from the Latin words con and fido, which basically means with faith. And even though I'm not talking about the type of faith that you might find in a higher power per se, it comes with this awareness that the future is possible, you know. And when people come with confidence, you can see it in how they walk and how they move and their ability to take risk, all sorts of things, their capacity for learning, all those emerged from confidence. And when people have confidence, you can see it and they become empowered. But when trust is high, but empowerment is low, disappointment is accelerated. So oftentimes we find that people who feel like they trust people assume that the people are also empowered. And that's not always the case. And in fact, in order for a team to operate at its highest level, they will have to be both trusted and empowered. And if you're not getting the results that you want, chances are it's because there's a discrepancy or an imbalance between the trust and empowerment. So here's the rub, right? Self empowered people often find it hard to believe that the people they trust are not equally empowered because a self-empowered person trusts themselves. They have that faith, or they at least have faith in a higher power or a process or something. And so they know if they do this, then this is the outcome. And so they assume if they trust somebody, then that person will also feel equally empowered. And that's just not always the case. It's very possible that someone can feel that they can lean off of your empowerment and they can trust you. And so they'll take the steps that you tell them to take, but they may not trust themselves. And since they don't trust themselves, they can't make decisions on the fly. If a self-empowered person tells a trusted person exactly what to do step by step, they usually can trust that they'll do it because that person that they trust trusts them. So if you say, hey, here's step one, here's step two, here's step three, here's step four. But if something happens between step one or step three and four or something that's unpredictable, the person who doesn't feel empowered gets stuck. They just don't know what to do. And so sometimes they'll just keep repeating things that don't work. Step one, two, three, and four, even when it doesn't seem to work, simply because they don't trust themselves to innovate or to do something different. And they're afraid of the risk. And it falls on the self empowered person to change that. Because if the self empowered person assumes that the trusting person is going to figure it out on their own, it is a recipe for disappointment. And that's something that I know that many leaders have seen a time or two. So I know this sounds frustrating. So, what can be done? Well, we can start with this awareness. When someone's trusted but not empowered, it's like being given keys to an expensive sports car, but being limited to driving it in the neighborhood. So you trust the person with your company or your organization. That's like giving them the keys to your expensive sports car. But then you say, hey, drive it in this neighborhood. And so they never fully understand the power that has been given to them. And they operate like it's a little Peugeot or Yugo or something like that when they have a full out sports car. And you know you've given them a sports car and you assume that they'll be able to handle that sports car, but not when they're driving it like it's a Cooper Mini. So how do you change that? Well, you got to be able to let them go out on the open road. And by going out on the open road with your vehicle, it means that they might wreck it. There's a lot of risk involved when empowering someone. But if they're not empowered, then they can't really fully take responsibility for the outcomes of what you've trusted them to do. So how do we get out of this? And I know that's a really, really frustrating situation. And, it starts with some tough questions. You have to ask yourself, what is not working about the team being trusted but not empowered? You already have the answer. It's the outcomes, but examine them a little bit more deeply. Write them out and say, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working about the team being trusted but not empowered. And then ask yourself, contrary, what is working about the team being trusted but not empowered? Because a lot of times when people are trusted but not empowered, it actually increases predictability. Because if you know the person is not empowered, there's a lot of factors that come into play. One, they may stick around because they're not empowered, so they feel like their options are limited. And so they may stick around because they don't feel empowered. And so you can trust that they'll show up, even though you might be able not be able to figure out what they may be able to do, but they may show up because they don't feel empowered. They don't feel like they have anywhere else to go. And that can be actually working when the team is trusted but not empowered. But what does that mean? Time to dig into that question and just figure out what is working about the team being trusted but not empowered, and decide if you prefer trusted but not empowered to trusted and empowered. It's a valid question. So dig deep. What are the concerns about the team becoming both trusted and empowered? Well, I will tell you that I did a presentation for one organization, and we talked and we did some exercises, and the people came away from those exercises. A few people came away feeling so empowered that they decided that they would start their own company to compete with the organization that I came to do the training for. And that's a risk. That's a concern about the team becoming both trusted and empowered. So that's something to think about, to dig deep in, and to examine. And then ask yourself, what will be the benefits of the team being both trusted and empowered? And look at those benefits and weigh them against the other question, and determine for yourself and for your organization what kind of future is possible with a team that is both trusted and empowered. And are you ready for those changes? Because people love to have new outcomes, but they don't like going through the transition a lot of times, because the transition can be uncomfortable. It can be very unpredictable. There could be a lot of risk and loss involved. And even when a person is open to risk and is used to risking, there's still some limits sometimes. If you ever want to control any outcome, then there's going to be some limits. And usually with business, it's all about outcomes. So those things kind of run into each other. So ask yourself, what will be the benefits of the team being both trusted and empowered, and then decide what you want to do. Then listen without judgment. Whatever comes up, just listen. If it sounds like painful, if it sounds confusing, if it's frustrating, whatever it is, just write it out, let it out. Don't be concerned, because there's magic that happens underneath when you answer these kinds of questions honestly. And then when you feel like you've gotten it all out and it's all on the table, it's all in front of you, it's up to you to make a U-turn. Because the fact is, you can't control other people. We can't control other people. All we can do is get honest with ourselves about the situations that we're in, Ask ourselves if we want them to be different. Ask ourselves if we're willing to take the risks that are necessary to get a different outcome. And then we have to change. We have to make that U-turn and see whether or not it's going to give us the outcomes that we want. But we can't really determine if it will. All we can do is change within ourselves. So we make that U-turn and we trust and we hope and we have faith that we'll get the positive outcomes we're looking for, either with the team that we have or with a different team. But if we stick to those ideals, integrity, dedication, equity, appreciation, love, and service, then I think you can trust that everything's going to be okay. But just in case, figure out what your enoughness is. Find out what enoughness means to you. And in the Western mindset, there's not really enoughness. Almost seems like it's a bad word sometimes. It seems like it's saying putting a limit on what you can accomplish. But that's not what this is about. Enoughness is really about that sweet spot. And you have to figure out what that is as you're moving through those changes. And the sweet spot can change over time, but you have to figure out what that is. And when you're increasing empowerment, you also are increasing engagement and you're also increasing employment or activity. And there's a point in there where you have maximized employment, you've maximized engagement, you've maximized empowerment. And then in there's a stability that comes in that space. And that's your enoughness point. A good way to articulate it is to say enoughness resides at the intersection between empowerment, engagement, and employment or activity. Whenever we make a change within, we have to take an action without so that we can embody that change. And so that's where the employment or activity comes into play. And you have to just meet that new awareness with action. It's just how it is. And it's not always employment in terms of job, but just doing something different. If you look inside of yourself and say, hey, I gotta get in shape, then you gotta take your body to the gym so that you can embody the value of getting in shape. And then you increase that capacity. It's very simple. It's just a part of how life works. And when you know your enoughness point, that stable point, you'll find that trust and empowerment get balanced. That's how you balance the scales. And once you balance the scales, you can trust that those you empowered will do the job that you need them to do. And once you get to that point, you celebrate. You celebrate the small wins along the way, and you do a huge celebration, congratulating everyone as you continue to move through this learning organization that both empowers and trusts their employees. Thank you for your time. I hope this serves you. Be well.